6:42, it is Alabama's Morning News. I'm JT. Well, as we know, if you're just waking up, the Democrats had a pretty big day across the country yesterday. Oh, yes. In Kentucky, Bashir won. Andy Bashir, he's the Democrat there. Well, I guess he's the incumbent and was reelected there. And his opponent, Republican Daniel Cameron, did not win enough, even though that's kind of a red state. Bashir speaking after the big victory here.
The people of Kentucky elected me as just the third two consecutive term governor in our history.
There you go. So, you saw a lot of surprises. Victoria Churchill joins us now, political strategist. Victoria, what did we learn yesterday? With all the different moves with Democrats in Virginia, man, it really went the other way, I thought.
Yes, I definitely think that something that we have to learn from yesterday is that folks want to hear about the kitchen table bread and butter issues. Everything that I'm seeing in national polling is all about the economy, the economy, the economy. And the Democrats were able to run away with it by distracting voters from that issue. They were able to focus on social issues like the pro-life issue and the issue of marijuana. That's something else that passed in Ohio. And so I think that's kind of really how they were able to sort of fearmonger the voters over these issues.
Yeah.
And I think that for the Republicans, the bread and butter issues, again, of the economy, of, security, both national security, international security, and just people feeling safe within their own homes, I think that's what Republicans have to champion over the next 12 months so that hopefully we see a better result this time next year.
Well, we saw that yesterday, front and center was the abortion issue around the country. Democrats did a great job as far as positioning that and moving everything else that you just mentioned that are concerns of the American people kind of to the back burner there. In Ohio, as you mentioned, a reporter caught up with Jim Jordan there after the voters in his home state approved that amendment to put the right to an abortion actually in the state constitution. Listen.
I'm on the side of protecting the sanctity of human life. I'm worried that there are going to be less kids who are going to enjoy enjoy life and be able to experience the gift of life that because of this issue that's now in the Constitution.
I would think the next thing out of Jim Jordan's mouth might have been, but let's talk about some other important issues. Folks here, why was nobody talking about the border, like you mentioned, Victoria? Why was nobody else talking about the crimes in the cities? The messaging might have been out there, but the Democrats had the megaphone with the abortion issue, and it rang home and rang true with voters in these areas for the most part. So do the Republicans have to kind of revisit the priorities on how to message for 2024? I mean, I think yesterday was a bit of a window into the reality of what may be a tough challenge next year.
Well, I think that all hope is not lost, but I do think that there is a little bit of dissonance in terms of Republican messaging. I think part of that is due to the fact that at the presidential level, we do have a primary, and candidates are kind of championing their own policy priorities, which, that kind of dilutes the messaging of whatever the party line is. That's going to depend on whoever the nominee is. And so I think that the Democrats, given the fact that they have, the White House, they have the Senate, they're able to message a little bit easier on what the Democrat line exactly is on these priorities. And there are very few, if any, Democrats that kind of deviate from what those party prescriptions are. But on the Republican side, we're having a very robust debate of what our policy platforms will be and how we'll kind of champion freedom for the next generation for, hopefully the next 4 to 8 years, as we're looking at taking back the White House from Joe Biden and the Democrats and, hopefully flipping the Senate back and maintaining the House. And again, I think another part of that is the Speaker of the House election, right? There was a little bit of dissonance there between the folks that ousted Kevin McCarthy and the folks that would not let a speaker be elected until they had somebody that aligned with their policy priorities. But I think those folks tend to lean kind of to one wing of the Republican Party versus another. And so we have to all figure out a messaging that's going to work nationwide. And that is a challenge, but I think that speaks to the strength of Republicans that we can actually have these robust debates and see what policy prescriptions are actually going to come out to be favorable, not only to the base, kind of the folks that are going to come out and vote in primaries and caucuses in the next couple of months here in early states, but also through the general election next year.
Do you believe that we were outspent as a Republican Party and outcoached, if you will, in this chess game that took place yesterday? Did the Democrats do a better job of messaging and spending money and getting out with their plan of attack than Republicans did?
Again, I think that the Democrats were a little bit more unified in their messaging just because they kind of have an identity that they're pushing, even though that's something that a lot of Democrats might not agree with. They're kind of getting on board on whatever the party line is. I live in a predominantly Democrat area. I live in Arlington. Yeah, I live in Arlington County, Virginia, and I talk to rank and file Democrats, whether they're staffers in the House and the Senate or even in the state legislature here. And a lot of them personally don't really like Joe Biden. They'll tell me that off the record, but publicly they're able to put forth this front of they're behind whatever is happening in the White House. They're behind whatever is happening at the state level. And so, I think this even came up during the speaker debate a little bit, is that Democrats really like to solve their problems internally versus Republicans like to kind of take them out on public view. And, I think there are some benefits to that, but I think, kind of as we saw yesterday, I think that kind of adds to the public dissonance of whatever the Republican message actually is.
All right, Victoria, if the RNC calls you today and says, listen, we want you in our next big meeting to talk strategy, and everybody turns their eyes to you and you're sitting at the end of the table, what's the one thing you change strategically for campaigning, for messaging in 2024 for the party?
Again, to me, it all comes down to security. Again, whether that's national security, border security, personal security. I think people want to feel safe and secure in their homes and in their country. And I think that's something that we have to ride, through the primaries. I think we have to elect candidates that are going to champion that. And I think through the general election, I think that has to be the Republican focus. Because, again, I also think that can kind of trickle down to economic security, right? Like, these are the issues that are top of mind for voters all across the country. But I also do think, for example, Northern Virginia, obviously very blue, obviously very dependent on the federal government for whether that's people's paychecks directly where they are federal employees or, they're contractors, but also kind of indirectly, right? Like, if you're a small mom and pop business owner here in Northern Virginia and the people that do work for the government stop getting paid, they're going to stop patroning your business as well.
Right.
And so I think that whoever is going to be able to provide folks kind of really get them off this roller coaster, right? Like, I think that's kind of how people view really the past 4 or 5 years is people are just kind of tired of living in unprecedented times.
Well, I tell you, we're going to hear some serious messaging tonight on the Republican debate that we'll carry starting at 7 o'clock. And I can't wait to hear how their positions are on what took place yesterday's elections, because I think it will come up for sure. All right, Virginia Churchill, thank you. Political strategist, commentator with Young Voices, who lives in Northern Virginia, real close to D.C. We appreciate you.